I'd like to call the regular city commission meeting of Tuesday, August 20th to order and ask all of you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. There are copies of the agenda available at the back of the commission chamber, as well as at the recorder's desk. Approval of the minutes of the regular commission meeting of July 16th.
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Communications, we have one communication. Woodward Avenue Action Association. Motion to receive and file.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. We have our county commissioner with us this evening, Commissioner Zach.
Good evening, everybody. So
What's new, commissioners?
we have a new county executive that got sworn in on Monday, Dave Coulter. And I had the pleasure of serving with Dave Coulter when I first started as county commissioner. He started and we served together for 8 years. And he was our caucus chair and really a tremendous leader. And I also got to see him in action as mayor of Ferndale. You know, I represent Ferndale among the 5 communities, and watched him bring the council together, the team of staff, and really help them lead, you know, to be the city that they are today. So honestly, this was my first choice to begin with, so I'm thrilled that I got my first choice. He announced today that he has hired his chief of staff, which is Hillary Chambers. And some of you might know her. She was the head of former Congressman Sandy Levin's office, chief of staff, I think for 25 years. And then she also has more recently helped our Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, get her office off the ground. So I think she's a wonderful selection and will help our county exec get started. And I can report that he's been meeting with who's left, the deputy county execs, trying to determine his first order of business is to create his team, his deputy county execs, and then to work on the budget. And as the chair of finance, I'm back to business. So next week we actually canceled several days of budget hearings through this. So I got to catch up. And our goal is to, vote on our budget by the end of September. And I know that our county exec shares my goal is to have a unanimous budget, to have everybody vote for it. So, any questions for me? Yes.
We'll get more support in the south end of the county now.
Clearly, our priorities, we have an opportunity, we have 16 months to, transition and set some new goals and ideas, and just some of the leadership in some of the departments will change what happens, economic development, how do we do that? I know that will be a change in leadership. There's a lot of different opportunities. I know that certainly with more parks and recreation we have now several South End Parks and Rec commissioners, and that made the difference when we were talking about the renovation of Catalpa Oaks. they weren't going to do it. And so I know that our soccer club spoke up, and then we had more votes at the table. I can look forward to hopefully new appointees to the RTA authority that may be more concerned about transportation. So there's a lot of interesting opportunity here. Part of, tomorrow is setting our, we are going to meet to talk about what are our highest priorities of what we want to approve, start the process through budget in the next 16 months. So, other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Public participation now is an opportunity for the public to comment on an item that is not on the agenda. Seeing none, public participation is closed. And we'll move on to a proclamation we have this evening of the City of Huntington Woods declaring Patriot Week and Patriot Day. Whereas throughout our country's history, the people of our great state and nation have worked together to ensure the preservation of the American ideals of freedom and liberty we enjoy today. And whereas American patriotism has endured through time of turmoil and times of peace, carrying our nation through the darkest days of history and strengthening our commitment to the ideals upon which our country was founded. Whereas in great reverence to the victims of the attacks of September 11, 2001, and recognition of the signing of the Constitution on September 17, 1787, Patriot Week is a time to celebrate the principles set forth by our founding fathers, as well as the countless patriots, vital documents, speeches, and flags that helped make America the great nation it is today. Now, therefore, the City Commission does hereby proclaim September 11th to the 17th, 2019 as Patriot Week, and September 11th, 2019 as Patriot Day. Signed this day by the mayor with the commission's approval. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I think we should take the board appointment out of order since she's here.
We can do that.
Any objections from the Hart family to that?
You don't think they're here for the entire exciting agenda? All right, we will move to item number 2 on the agenda. And we're actually going to leave open the appointments to the Communication Committee and the Library Advisory and Senior Advisory to do a little more advertising and see if there's some more citizen interest for those committees. So I'll ask the city manager to advertise those in any way we can. And if anyone knows of anyone interested in those positions, please have them contact City Hall. But we do have an appointment we would like to make to the Environmental Advisory Committee. Anyone like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion that we appoint Sophie Hart to the Environmental Committee.
Support.
Any comments or questions from the audience? Well said. Commission, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations and thank you for volunteering. All right, moving back to item number 1, it's a matter of consideration of a golf cart ordinance. We'll call it that. Conversation regarding that.
Yeah, in 2014, the Michigan Legislature amended the vehicle code and gave cities the authority to permit golf carts on public streets if they so decided. It actually can be done by resolution rather than ordinance. There are some criteria that should be adopted if the city is interested in moving forward, and the city attorney has drafted a resolution that incorporates those for your consideration. We do have Rob Onesco, who's the resident who brought this to our attention, and also Public Safety Director is here if you have any questions about the operation of golf courts on city streets.
Rob, do you have any comments before we?
Well, again, I've talking to some of, you know, I guess the residents of Huntington Woods and how cool it would be. My father-in-law has a place down near Charleston, South Carolina, and it's a kind of a golf cart community. And I just think it's really cool that everyone's driving around their golf carts. It's family-oriented. Usually you got kids with parents, and everyone's stopping and waving and talking to each other. I thought it'd be a cool little thing for our city. It's obviously a great city, and, you know, the residents all get along pretty well. I thought this would be another way to help, I guess, facilitate extra communication between the residents. Couple of things we kind of talked about too is it's kind of got a green initiative to it. I could assume most golf carts would probably be electric, and that could kind of help out with the city. And the other thing I was thinking of too is they're smaller than cars, and if you got like concerts in the park and things like that, if you have more people are taking golf carts, it's gonna be less congestive. You know, maybe easier to fit more carts in a certain area. Again, it also opens up the friendliness in the conversations. And the other thing we kind of mentioned was they're only limited, I believe, to 15 miles an hour. And it's kind of like maybe like a not moving speed bump per se, but like a traffic calming where, you know, a lot of times you hear cars are speeding down 18 and Borgman and such. And if you got golf carts kind of going at 15 miles an hour, it's going to kind of, I think, slow the traffic down just on that aspect of it alone. So that was kind of my thoughts about it. Again, I thought it'd be a really cool thing. I got a lot of people said they were very interested in it. So it seemed like something we should just, you know, bring up and see what we can do from there. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Chief, any, I hear from the chief on that? Or not yet?
Sure, we can. Chief, do you have any comments?
Well, obviously, I'm here for questions regarding it. It's just a new initiative. I did do some research. I could only find about 12 cities so far that are doing it, and most of them are rural areas, vacation areas. The only city that I actually found locally would be Centerline. I talked to the chief there. He hasn't had any complaints, however, the only people that are registered to use those are the industrial area, and they're using the carts actually on their business property. So they're not driving through the subdivision and through the neighborhoods. So he believes that's why there hasn't been a whole lot of complaints. You know, you're gonna have to really, I think you need to spend some time to look at it. The issue in Huntington Woods, the streets are very narrow. They're only 22 feet wide, which is very narrow. Typically you'll see 28, 30-foot streets. So the car will be out in traffic, not like a bike. It's gonna be almost like 2 lanes into traffic. But he mentioned that it will calm traffic because it will slow down the traffic because they're going to have to go around these golf carts. So those are things you'll have to do.
That'll be really good.
There's not a whole lot of data at this point because it's so new in regards to the complaints. I mean, some of the ones that I've heard from the one city up north was that initially it started out okay, but like anything, like trying to get runners to run on the sidewalk, which is hard to do. Trying to get the bikes to stop at stop signs, which is hard to do. But problems that I've seen so far were you have to be 16 and have a driver's license to drive it. You'll see 12-year-olds jumping on them. That's what some of the complaints were. The kids, when their parents aren't home, they're driving them. Those type of complaints. They have to comply with all the laws. They're considered, because it's in the motor vehicle code, it is considered a vehicle or a motor vehicle. If they were drunk on that vehicle, they get the same sanctions as a person who drove a car, identical. The arrest is identical, just like, same thing if you were to drive a lawnmower down the street, you know, a tractor, same thing. And there's a lot of restrictions you could put into it. I mean, you have the list in front of you if you were to consider it in regards to lighting and all that. But see, the thing is, you can't drive, you're not supposed to drive after dark, so they really don't need the lights and those other restrictions that you can put on them. But I just, at this point, there's just not a whole lot of data out there to go by in regard, they don't require safety belts or issues. I guess the concern is to make sure that if they were to be allowed, that the children are safe. There's no restriction, I mean, there's no, you do not have to have safety belts on a golf cart. In fact, it would be kind of costly if you forced them to do that. So that's an issue with the driving the kids around. But like as I said, right now there's just not a whole lot of statistical data to give you in regards to the issues with safety. Oh, the other issue is parking. You can't park them. If you were driving at the rec center, you can't park them on the street. You can't park them, they're not a licensed motor vehicle. So I don't know where you park them. You'd have to, the commission would have to set up and make some type of a parking out of the parking lot, away from regular cars and out of the streets. So that would be an issue at the library and the rec center too. That's all I can say right now in regards to it.
Any comments from the commission?
Well, I had some comments. Huntington Woods is not a gated community, and it's not a golf cart community or golf course community. It's a high traffic, narrow streets, as the chief pointed out. In some instances, high traffic thoroughfare streets, Boardman, Lincoln, Nadine, that cut all the way through. We're already very congested, and with all the construction in the city of homes and renovations, trying to wheedle your way down some of the streets is not easy under the best of circumstances. I see this with all due respect to Rob. I mean, I understand how on a topical view it's, well, it'll be okay and stuff like that, but you got to look at whether, in my opinion, whether the negative outweighs the positive, whether the risks of danger and injury outweigh the potential benefits of which, candidly speaking, I see none. I've driven a lot of golf carts in my life, but they've all been on golf courses, and I can say honestly I've only rolled one time many years ago, but they're not vehicles. They're intended for very specific use and very specific settings, and I understand in some communities you can do that. I did read some of what the chief was referencing online about South Haven and some of the problems they've had there. I just feel that in Huntington Woods, the idea that a golf cart would be used to try to slow traffic, I am not sanguine about what that would look like in terms of an encounter between the driver of the car and the driver of the golf cart. I'm very concerned in an era where we have Silverados and F-150s all over the place. You could be on top of or over a golf cart before you even knew you were there. So I feel, candidly speaking, that the proposal, very frankly, I have two reactions to it. It's just not something that I think we should be involved in. Number one, for public safety purposes, and number two, I just feel it's not something that would be well received at all by our residents. I mean, the idea that you could just hop on and go for a ride is, if, like the chief says, you can't do it after dark, so what's the point? I get this idea about green and so forth. Walking is greener. Parking would be, I can see where parking would be an enormous potential problem. So, one of the questions, well, where do you park? Well, you can park in a parking spot. I don't think so. See, motor vehicles pay taxes. Every time you buy a gallon of gas, you pay tax. Taxes pay for roads, obviously not enough as they do. You have a registration fee on your vehicle that pays for the things you're riding on, the roads, the parking spots, things like that. And it's just, they don't. And I just feel that it would be a negative, very negative thing for us to be involved in. I'm sure that there's some folks that think it'd be a cool thing to try out, but my career as a personal injury lawyer has told me to look at ways that people can really get hurt, and I see this as an accident waiting to happen, and I don't want to be the city commissioner that voted for something like that in the absence of, this is just not the right kind of place for it. Too many cars, too many trucks, too much traffic, streets are too narrow, not a safe venue for that type of situation, in my opinion.
I think there is a major concern there for public safety. I'll add to what Commissioner Olsman said with cars backing out of their driveway and where cars are parked on the side of the street. Are they gonna see a golf cart? I think there's a lot of concerns there, and parking is a huge issue. I mean, if your destination is the rec center or the library or Scotia Park and there's no place to park, that is an issue, so I have a lot of concerns. Any other comments? Anyone care to proceed at this point with anything?
We need a motion.
You would need a motion to approve
We
it.
don't need a,
Right.
I'm making that motion.
Any other public comment before we close this discussion? Okay.
It was worth a try.
No harm in asking.
Right.
All right. With that, moving on to item number 3, matter of consideration to approve a new diversity and inclusion advisory committee.
Yes, this is a proposal brought forward by resident Steve Gold, who is here in the audience. He knew that the city had become a welcoming city back in 2017, but we had not taken any action in support of that initiative, and so he began discussions with the city to see if there was anything else that the city could do to promote diversity and inclusion, and so he had developed a very detailed proposal with membership, committee charge, and next steps for the committee. And so he is here to discuss the possible formation of a new city committee that would be known as the Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Committee.
Like to make some comments? Thank you.
I always appreciate the opportunity to make comments. Thank you. Good evening. I am indeed Steve Gold, and for the past, I always speak from notes. I'm sorry. You'll have to forgive a certain amount of formality. For the past 30 years, my wife and I have lived on Balfour Avenue here, and our children, now adults with children of their own, went to Burton and Norrup and Berkeley High, and 2 of our grandchildren will probably do the same. So we are now 3-generation Huntington Woods residents, and happy to have lived in this city longer than we ever lived anywhere else in our lives. In my final working position before retiring, I was a department director in Macomb County government. And in that capacity, I helped to lead the One Macomb Diversity and Inclusion Initiative, which was begun by the county executive in response to the county's rapidly changing demographics. People from around the world were coming into the county every week, and they were driving positive change everywhere. There were more foreign language classes and more familiarity with the cultures of other countries in the schools. There were more entrepreneurs starting family-owned small businesses, and there were more well-educated employees finding work in the county's high-tech manufacturing sector. Well, you can't directly compare a county approaching 900,000 people with a small residential community like Huntington Woods, but you can ask whether we are doing everything that we can to plan for our and our children's future. So when I retired, I began to think about how I could give back to the community. And given my background, naturally enough, one of the things that I thought about was diversity. So this is indeed a wonderful city. We're really glad to have lived most of our adult lives here, raised our kids here. But if you compare us to the surrounding county, it's really clear that Huntington Woods is kind of an island. It's an island that has become much more densely populated with some groups of people and much less densely populated with other groups of people. The white paper in your packet provides data showing that Huntington Woods has significantly more American-born residents and significantly fewer foreign-born residents than the county as a whole. In terms of race, We are more white, less black, less Asian, less Hispanic than the surrounding county. And in terms of national origin, we appear to be less Eastern European, less Indian, Pakistani, or Iranian, less Lebanese, Iraqi, or Syrian than the county as a whole. And if we look just at the Western Hemisphere, we attract many more Canadian-born residents, but many fewer Central or South American-born residents. So one result of those facts is that our children are often 18 years or older, and at least in high school, before they finally encounter classmates who look different than they do or have different life experiences than they do. Another result is that our clubs, our advisory boards, our parents' groups, and our civic life in general reflects only a portion of the rich experience of people who live in the rest of the region. Why exactly this is, when other communities are more diverse, is a good question. Economics is a partial answer, but there are well-off engineers and doctors and business people and academics of all ethnicities and races living upper middle class, economically advantaged lives in other nearby communities. Why not this one? Many of the smaller homes in Huntington Woods are occupied by families that are far from wealthy, but those families aren't ethnically or racially diverse either. Why is that? So I really don't know the answers to those questions or many related ones, but I do think that we owe it to ourselves and our kids to look into them. We also know little of the experience of the relatively few people of color and foreign-born people that do find their way to Huntington Woods. Do they feel welcomed and included? Do they stay here? Do they leave? Huntington Woods has put some great building blocks in place already. Among these are the Human Rights Ordinance of 2011, the Welcoming City Resolution of 2017, and just last year, the tremendous support shown by the administration, the commission, and the residents for Drag Queen Storytime. All of these actions demonstrated the city's affirmative will to be inclusive and welcoming. Building on those assets now by establishing a Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Committee is another good step in the right direction. It's the next thing that we can and should do to fulfill the city's purpose as stated in the city charter, to promote, maintain, and better provide for the growing needs of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Certainly.
Mr. Gold, I want to first thank you so much for your career and dedication to this specific topic. I am foreign-born, I'm an immigrant, and I am also a minority and a woman. And I think you've brought us some really important questions and observations about our city. And I think this is a very important topic. But diversity and inclusiveness are two very complex issues. I think there are communities in Southeast Michigan that are diverse, but they are not inclusive, some of the ones that you referred to. In Huntington Woods, I think generally we've done, a good job with some of the policies that you refer to as well to try to be inclusive. But you're right, we are not diverse. What I really appreciate about your comments and the information that you've put together is how well thought out this was, and I think it's really well intentioned. However, I think that these specific diversity and inclusion efforts and initiatives need to be at every single level of our committees that we've already established. And I've been really thinking about this as I got this packet last week. All of this comes down to housing. Huntington Woods has an affordable housing problem. We are a very affluent community, and in order to live here, there is a price level. So if you really want to move the needle on this, we need to discuss affordable housing. And I think your timing is really ideal as we are going to be going through this master planning process. I would challenge this proposal to leverage some of the other efforts that we are already implementing. So in the master planning process, we're going to be talking about housing specifically, and how do we plan for the future and help people stay here as they age in place, help attract new families to come here to live and be a part of our school system. But at the very root of it, affordable housing is the key. And the reason why our suburban community is the makeup of what it is because of the federal housing policies, the Federal Highway Administration, the VA bill, the redlining, all of these federal policies that have made us build out our built environment and the demographics that spread out the way it is. And you brought up some really interesting, perspectives about how there are affluent professionals that live in other parts of the Southeast Michigan region, but we are 1.47 square mile, right? We are a very small community, and unless you know about it, I knew about Huntington Woods because I grew up in Royal Oak. And I so happened to marry someone who grew up here. So I think it's a part of that, unfortunately, we are very small and the housing stock is limited. But I see that we have the master plan for the Parks and Recs department in here as well. And we need to leverage those resources because it takes resources to run a full-on committee. And I welcome, you to continue to talk to us about your ideas, and I want to support these efforts. But I just noticed that there are things in here that we could more efficiently utilize and make sure that we insert this very important topic as a part of every single one of our committee discussions and strategies for the city. Because my worry is I've seen diversity and inclusiveness discussed at the corporate level, and sometimes it's through training. And there are some criticisms out there that it's just, you're trying to feed people this information to move the needle, and while it's well-intentioned, is it really making a difference? And you really have to look at the deep root causes of why we are the way we are and what we can do to actually change those policies that will help facilitate this. So I'm not saying that this is, this is a great idea. I'm saying that this is a great idea and I want to help facilitate it. But are there ways that we can, for example, one of your committee charges is to actively seek ways for Huntington Woods to accurately and effectively present itself to underrepresented communities as a desirable place to live. So that should be a part of the master planning discussion. How do we have a strategy to promote Huntington Woods to all races and backgrounds and nationalities and religions, and as a great place to live, work, and play, but also making sure that we are deliberate in those policies. And my worry about having one singular committee is that it becomes siloed. Because I've seen it already in the 9 months that I've been in this position. One committee is so focused on solving those issues that they don't necessarily talk to the other ones. So I really love all of the information in here, and I think there are ways that we can better integrate them into the city execution to make sure that we are moving the needles and accomplishing everything that you've put together here. So those are my thoughts, but I think some of the activities that you've suggested in here are great ideas, and would love to, hear from the rest of the commission on what they think too. Thank you.
Huntington Woods is a very quiet island. Because we're quiet, a lot of people don't know about us. The idea here of being a welcoming community and intentional is getting a group of people that will look outside and that may also be able to recruit minorities, different groups that exist even within the city on our boards and commissions. If you look closely at the boards and commissions, the diversity really isn't there. You can say, well, it's not our fault, we advertise and we reach out. The Michigan Municipal League supports welcoming communities. It's a topic area that they deal with. Demi can explain a little bit more about this because there's a statewide organization that looks at welcoming. There are many cities that have this. I agree completely with you, Michelle, that we also need on every single committee to be sensitive on these things. But you can have a planning document which is a planning document. This is a proposed people committee. And maybe, can we ask a speaker on Welcoming Michigan to explain what's going on statewide? Would that be possible, sir?
Good evening. My name is Danny Middleton. I'm the Communities Coordinator for Welcoming Michigan. So as Jeff said, we work with 21 welcoming cities and counties across Michigan. And we encourage local communities to do exactly what Huntington Woods is considering here tonight by considering a diversity and inclusion committee. We think this is a great way to get the community involved. It's a good way to be representative and to demonstrate that Huntington Woods is a welcoming community for all. So what did you want me to specifically speak about? That was just my comments that I was going to provide.
Perhaps, what are some of the cities that are involved currently?
So as you might have heard, Oakland County recently passed a welcoming resolution, and there are neighboring welcoming cities. So Royal Oak is a welcoming city. The city of Ferndale is a welcoming city. So we recently had a meeting where we were trying to leverage resources because this is a small community. So we were trying to bring together Royal Oak, Ferndale, I believe Oak Park and Berkeley as well we're inviting to the table. So I believe that they have diversity inclusion committees as well, but I'd have to look that up because I haven't been with this organization long enough to know if when they were established. But they've also held Welcoming Week events. I know Amy had included that in your package about the proposed Welcoming Week events for Huntington Woods. So similarly located cities are also making movements like this.
All right.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. What I would personally like to see is that we form this committee and have them, I know they'd like to do an event for Welcoming Week that's coming up in September. Let them do some recruitment, maybe get some people interested in joining the board or the committee, and put together a more detailed plan on what they actually feel like we can do for the community, and put a short-term report back to us after you formed and come up with a plan, and then we can talk about making it a permanent committee after we have a better idea for what they'd like to do. Commissioner?
Well, I mean, it's a well-intentioned project, certainly laudable. This is not just an issue faced by municipalities, faced by other organizations. I can speak from my perspective, having served on the State Bar of Michigan Board of Commissioners. I can speak from my perspective, having been president of the Michigan Trial Lawyers and other leadership positions I've had. I'm not sure you can engineer this. I'm really not. A lot of the questions you ask, they're obvious. I mean, you have a city like Huntington Woods, you got roughly 70% of the residents have a college degree or higher, graduate degree. It's one of the most, I say this advisedly because all my conservative friends keep telling me this, it's one of the most liberal communities, if you will, in the state of Michigan. We're about as welcoming as you can be by the things you pointed out, the human rights ordinance, all the other, the whole drag queen controversy. City commission committees exist for a defined purpose. Look at all of them: senior advisory, communication, environmental, planning, ZB, which have to exist by law. But there's a very defined, specific purpose. I'm not saying that, I'm certainly not speaking against the concept that it's always good to have more diversity, and your point is well taken about what children see and what they learn and who they're with and finding out about other people and their life experience, and it may be different than theirs. I mean, that's 1,000,000% true. I just don't know that you can engineer where people want to live. Like you talk about doctors and, physicians, whatever. Why don't they live here? I don't know. Probably because maybe they want to live in Birmingham. Maybe they want to walk to a restaurant. Why they live in Royal Oak or Bloomfield Hills or wherever they choose to live. I don't know. I don't know that we can, you ask the question, well, do people feel included? Well, how are you going to survey that and knock on the door and say, do you feel included? I mean, you live here. I mean, and how people choose to live here. Some people are real involved in a lot of stuff. Some people just like going for a walk with their dog or whatever, and it's great. I mean, that's what they want. They get what they want to out of living here. I share Commissioner Elder's comment about it being a big issue, and I'm not opposed to the mayor's suggestion about a temporary, if you will, or a limited appointment here to see what can be done, but I just see the cause is too broad for a city committee. That's what I mean. It's like, it's just, it touches on so many facets and so many aspects. Another thing that, I mean, this idea that, well, we're going to pick people based on who they are. We're going to get one person who's African American. We're going to get one person who's, I mean, I always, you opt for the best possible people. If you have a PhD in sociology who's not Asian, I think it might be a better candidate for a committee like this. All I'm saying is, it's a big topic, and I'm not sure it's something that belongs in a city commission sanctioned committee, just because I don't see how anything you can advise us on is going to change how people who are looking for a place to live are going to come to live here. Like I said, this is already a very demographically, like I said, the education base, the political base, if you will, all of that. I mean, we're here. Got it. I mean, we're it. And if you want to come here, you come here. You can't tell people you should come here because we want more people from the Middle East, or we want more people from Asia or India. I mean, I'm just, like I said, I'm just not sure that that's something for an advisory committee. But having said that, I'm not opposed to what Mayor Paul is talking about. I'm just concerned about that it be a meaningful exercise.
Any other comments?
What do you want, a 90-day window?
I'd like to recommend the creation of a new one-year committee, and that the city solicit citizen interest forms from residents at the end of this 1 year that would be reviewed to see if it's effective and if it makes a difference, or if it is something that can be done just through the other committees. I think it's an interesting approach. It isn't going to hurt us. At the same time, I don't think it's going to take a tremendous amount of commission time. We have intentionally been a quiet island. We don't on the expressway show that we exist here. We are nervous that if people find this wealthy little island, that they'll steal from us. And this is a way that perhaps a committee with some direction can carry out a number of events during the year. And there's an event mentioned here where we would basically get 30 residents to present different ethnicities, inviting, at this point in time, people from the city to come to that. There would be no charge to this event. It would be done on the welcoming week, so it would be an event where we could, one, see if we can get a turnout, two, if we can get 30 people to show up. And this starts giving us a chance to look at trying a new committee. We were talking earlier about communication and the fact that we don't necessarily get our communication out this well. In this instance, this would be inviting people in each of these demographics. There are wealthy people that can't afford to live in Huntington Woods, that would love to live in Huntington Woods if they knew a little bit about it. I would like to, again, following the mayor's suggestion, recommend that we create a new one-year committee, follow basically what the city manager had suggested, but it be a one-year committee reviewed at the end of 1 year. So we could see if it does work or it's something that would not work.
Can I ask him to, can you restate the motion for clarity? There were some things you left out the second time.
The second paragraph says, staff recommends the city commission approve the creation of the new, I put in 1 year committee, and that the city solicit interest forms from residents. And the only difference would be is this committee would exist for 1 year. At the end of 1 year, we would review it and see if it was effective or if it was a waste of time, or if it could be done otherwise.
We have a second?
Well, I don't know that a year is required. Like I said, my understanding is the impetus for this is there's a fair in September that you want to be able to go to and hold yourself out on behalf of the city. Is that correct, Mr. Gold?
Well, the welcoming initiative goes on year-round. There are certain points in time, like Patriots Week or Patriots Day, when there's a special focus, and Welcoming Week is the annual observance by hundreds of communities around the country of welcoming. So there are some specific events like Welcoming Week and other natural holidays, Black History Month, and so on and so forth, where you would emphasize certain things. But the initiative would go on in its data collection and fact-finding and receiving opinions, hearing presentations, formulating plans continuously. It's not like this is a one-and-done, job fair or health fair or something like that. It's intended to be a serious policy-oriented enterprise.
Again, I would make the lifespan initially shorter than a year just to see if there is any impetus for it, or if it's, like I said, if it's just a topic so big. I'm just not, personally, I'm not big on, like I said, just like sometimes proclamations and stuff, I've got flack from people before where I voted no or I haven't voted or something, and people don't understand. It's not that I'm against, I just don't know that that's what we should be doing up here, but.
I have a few questions. So, Mr. Gold, maybe you can help me. I'm trying to wrap my head around this concept and all the things that you're trying to accomplish here. So to me, it seems like there are certain activities and events that you're hoping that could be city-supported and recognized throughout this proposed year. And then there's certain activities and efforts and research that you're also trying to accomplish. Is there a budget that's required to do these things?
We're not anticipating making any request from the city for financial support. You'll notice that I had a line in there that said that the committee could engage in fundraising with the approval of the commission and within state law. So that would be a separate question. The idea is, and I very much appreciate your remarks and Commissioner Olsman's remarks as well as Commissioner Jenks. The idea is that we don't really know why affluent Chaldeans live in certain places and not others, or why PhDs graduating from Wayne State will live in some communities but not others. We really don't know. Commissioner Jenks has suggested that we have been sub rosa for our entire existence, leading to, as in your case, a sort of a proximity-based or a word-of-mouth-based community. And there is nothing wrong with proximity-based and word-of-mouth-based, but the observation would be that we have ended up unrepresentative of the world that we live in. And we actively seek to beautify, we actively seek to have a library and use media, but we don't have a goal of providing our community with the wealth of cultural experience that exists all around us.
You just can't engineer that, though. Your comment about various, ethnic groups, if you go down 10 Mile Road here, we've got a whole enclave of Orthodox Jewish cultural places, the yeshivas, the synagogues, and you say, well, why are they all? Because people seem to like to live in a neighborhood where they can access the things that are close to them that they want, like with the Orthodox community, the ability to walk to shul on Saturday, or not have to drive a car to get places that they want to go to. Like this goes to my question about whether you asked the question about the Chaldean community having many friends in that community. I mean, it's I don't know what, I'm not a sociologist, so I don't know how to, but it's the idea of folks with common background living in a common area, and you can criticize that and say, well, why aren't they sharing their talents with the world? I don't know. And so, it's not my objection, it's my stated concern that this is beyond the scope of what a committee is capable of doing. But, it's not that the goal is not laudable or that the intentions are ill-intentioned. They're not. They're fine. And the thing that you said that I agree with the most is about children being exposed to other people. It's a bit like, we live in a big world, and it's nice that people get to know other, people from other places, other religions, other cultures, so that they don't just see themselves, wherever they go. I agree with the idea, but I just, like I said, my concern is using the structure of a city commission sanctioned committee to try to do that. So,
Is it reasonable to think that the committee would be formed and a more detailed plan formulated in a 6-month period of time that you could bring back to the commission for review?
Well, it's hard to know that without knowing the rate at which we would accrue members of the committee. I see this as a citizen-driven initiative. So if we put out the call for people and explain the purpose and so on and so forth, if we assembled a reasonable mass of people representing those various underrepresented demographics very quickly, then the question is, how much time can volunteers put into things? If you generally have monthly meetings, then in 6 months, you've got 6 meetings. And that's not a lot of meetings to get people together to formulate plans, to implement and demonstrate success. So I think a year would be a reasonable time. It goes through one cycle of people's lives, and I think that that would be a fair test. With regard to the serious question of social engineering and so on and so forth, I guess I do see it as appropriate for a city to provide an environment in which certain things can flourish. And we do that with our physical plant, and I think we can investigate whether there are any barriers or any lack of facilitation that is perceived by these communities that are underrepresented. It could be as simple as, yeah, that's a great community. I never knew Huntington Woods had such wonderful assets and was so welcoming and so great, because I don't know anybody who lives there, but I appreciate the opportunity to know more about your city. I was in Wayne County government and Macomb County government for more than 40 years, and there were people that did, and I still have many friends in all those areas, and there are still people that don't know exactly where Huntington Woods is. They vaguely heard of it, but they don't know if it's near Lake Orion or, where is that place?
Have you tried buying a house here recently? It's impossible.
Yeah.
Even if you try to get in here, this stems back to housing and the affordability issue. And that's why I think I want to help you accomplish a lot of these things that you have on this list, but we have to look at we have to approach this more holistically and look at all of the city committees and policies to help facilitate that. So again, I appreciate this, especially given my background. I really appreciate this, but I do share, the concern that Commissioner Holzman said about just the committee being able to solve all of these problems as one standing committee. I think it needs to be institutionalized. That's my comment.
It would be setting the committee up for failure to regard the metric as either solving all the problems of society
Right.
or failing to.
Right.
Making a statement that you recognize that things can be better and have an organized arm investigating that is a statement of commitment to being objective and honest.
Right, and it's leveraging some of the efforts we already have in plan, like you have in collecting, analyzing surveys, holding public forums, and other methods. We are already going to be doing that as a part of the master plan process and the Parks and Rec master plan process. So I want to make sure that if you're doing these efforts, that you're not recreating the wheel or starting from ground zero, that you're leveraging a lot of these resources. And then this one in here, explore opportunities, with other ethnic associations and refugee-serving organizations and religious institutions. There are so many people here that are already doing that, and I think it's just mapping it out. So I just want to caution, recreating the wheel and the efforts that you're going to have to make in the short amount of time and the recruitment as well. So it's a lot. So I appreciate it, but just those are my concerns. Okay, so what's the motion?
We have a motion.
The motion again would be to create this new one-year committee. And at the end of 1 year, we would review it. But it would go for 1 year. It's not a long-term committee. And during the year, we could see how it was doing. Was it duplicating? What other committees? I see if Huntington Woods celebrated Black History Month, that would surprise people. Because we've never done it in the 40 plus. The school may do it. The city hasn't. Hispanic history. Once you start recognizing groups, then people hear about it and they look more closely, or the assumption is that they look more closely. Let's not be afraid to try it for 1 year. We have had things in the master plan for years, mixed-use development, stuff like that. It has never moved. it's been on paper. Why don't we try it for 1 year and see how it works?
I honestly don't have an opinion on the time frame, but it seems like there's a split between 12 months and 6 months. So why don't we do 9 months?
That's fine, and we'll review it at the end of 9 months.
But the understanding is that the life of the committee is a 9-month life, subject to continue on. We
Correct.
have to vote to
Correct.
make it continue.
Correct.
Okay, 9 months.
Now, Heidi, have we answered your question?
Was there a second?
We're creating a
ask-
committee for 9 months.
Can I ask quickly, do you want the citizen interest portion of it included?
Yes.
Yes.
I will second that.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We will start advertising that as quickly as possible. Item number 4 is a matter of consideration. The City of Huntington Woods enter into an agreement for the Parks and Recreation Master Plan update with Carlisle Ortman in the amount of $15,250.
So moved.
A second.
Any public comment? Commission comments or questions?
The only question I have is why a single bidder?
They're our planner of choice, not of choice, they are our established planner.
I would hope in the future, to me, they are not an impressive planner. In the future, I would hope that we could put that out to planning organizations, at least that are used by cities in the region. It still might be that you would recommend that the difference in price is insignificant, you're more comfortable with this vendor. But I just think that very frequently they are not the most creative.
Did they do the last one?
Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain,
You
can't abstain.
opposed.
Okay, motion carries. Item number 5 is a matter entering into a purchase agreement with Falcon Road Maintenance Equipment for the purchase of an asphalt hot box utilizing MIDL contract in the amount of $37,114.25.
So moved.
Second.
Any other comments from staff?
When I sat down with Rocco to discuss our budget this year, this was the first item on his wish list, so he'll be very happy to get this.
We like it when Rocco said it.
Okay, any comments or questions from the commission? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is a matter of authorizing the finance director to sign the IT services agreement with Oakland County on behalf of the city.
So moved.
Second.
Comments from staff? Any other comments or questions from the commission? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7 is entering into a contractual agreement with FEMA Systems of Troy, Michigan to perform a telephone system replacement as proposed in the amount of $26,750, replacing a phone system that is how old?
Approaching 30 years old.
Yeah,
Nortel's no longer in business, who is our current phone system, so all the parts are secondary market.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All right, any other comments or questions?
Afraid I'll come in and be a payphone on the wall.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item number 8 is a motion to enter into a contract with Fairway Tile and Carpet of Clawson, Michigan for the replacement of the Public Safety Department carpet. It was partially destroyed by a backup in the amount of $6,613.
Is there any,
So move.
any insurance coverage on that for the backup?
We could try to get for the, well, we're replacing more carpet than what was destroyed.
Yeah, but
Decided
so
to-
what
it
if
was-
they,
We had a $2,500 deductible, so I think it would be under the deductible.
well, I mean, I'm gonna vote to approve it, but I think it's
Yeah, I'll look
prudent to
into it.
see, if there's insurance coverage for any part of the loss, if it's 6,600 and our deductible's 2,500, still, you know, taxpayer dollars, and if there's insurance coverage, let's get whatever we can get from them.
Yeah, I'll look into it.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 9 is a matter of considering that the City of Huntington Woods exempt itself from the Publicly Funded Insurance Contribution Act of 2011, Public Act 152.
So move.
Second.
This is something that we need to do on an annual basis.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 10, we had a first reading on at the last commission meeting. It is a matter of the formal adoption of the ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance to prohibit marijuana establishments within the regulation and taxation of the Marijuana Act. Any other comments?
No? Planning Commission held a public hearing, voted recommendation. This is before you for the second reading.
Do we have a motion?
So move.
A second?
I note, looking at this, this wasn't the final revised that was sent over, and it's just a matter of switching the wording around, where we're prohibiting all marijuana establishments that are regulated under the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act within the boundaries of the city. Switching that phrase around so that it reads clearer.
Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna second it, but I just want it clear because I have had some, resident, critique, if you will, of that position, and I don't wanna, no pun intended, I don't want it to appear high-minded, but I think that the, concern, that I have, that I'm obviously in favor of what we're seeing all over, is what's occurring. I understand it's not without controversy. I just think right now for our city, it's a very uncertain environment, and I don't like to buy into anything that's too uncertain. So I'd rather be comfortable. If we want to amend this ordinance, we can do it at any time. We can revoke it or repeal it at any time if we feel that we're in a stable governing environment, if you will, with regard to the whole issue. So I don't want to be perceived that we, quote unquote, are against having, against the use or whatever, the whole issue. It's not the case. It's just for our particular city, given the limited amount of space we have that's available to even be considered for this type of situation. I'm just, like I said, I just am not comfortable with the choppiness of the water I know Commissioner Rozell has, vehemently opposed, and I understand he's very interested in it from a blight perspective and things like that, but I'm voting to support it, but I'm also saying clearly that should the time come down the road that we see a better, more stable, regulated environment, that we would consider reversing or repealing the ordinance, putting a new one in its place. We always have the right to do that. So subject to that, I'm going to second it.
Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have 4 sets of reports and minutes. Do I have a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Warrant number 354, do we have a motion to approve and accept subject to full audit?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the city manager's report.
Yeah, I want to remind you and let the residents know that there will be a joint city commission meeting with the Long Range Budget and Planning Committee on this Wednesday, the 28th at 7 o'clock. This will be an opportunity for the commission to discuss the report with the committee and also their recommendations. So hopefully we can have some residents in attendance to hear that conversation. Also from the Recreation Center, they do their annual cleaning this time of year, so the Recreation Center is going to be closed this Saturday and Sunday. And then the gym is going to be closed the entire week so that the hardwood refinishing can cure. And then, of course, the Recreation Center will be closed for Labor Day. The pool will be open, and in fact, the hours for this last week of the pool activities is on our website. If you want to take advantage of that. And just the last item would be that trash is going to be delayed the week of Labor Day. We'll get signs out to remind people that trash needs to go out Tuesday night instead of Monday night.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the city manager? Commissioner's remarks. Commissioner Elder.
Thank you. I just want to say I recognize that the electricity has been an issue for many of our residents, especially those on Dundee and York. Your commission here has been actively advocating DTE officials and communicating on your behalf throughout all of it. I know we're not, out there talking about what we're doing on a play-by-play basis, but we have been in active communications with their leadership. And one of the recommendations that we made was to make sure that they hold an open house, communicate with our residents on what their plans is, and I appreciate all of the residents that had reached out to DTE as well. It's important that they hear from you. But I think tonight's open house at the rec center and some of the door knocking that they've done through the last month or so is a good effort on DTE, and I do want to recognize them for their efforts as well. But as a result of all that advocacy with the residents and with us, they are moving up their tree trimming schedule as well as making some improvements to the hardware. And they did take our input into consideration, and hopefully this will resolve a lot of the outage and reliability issues for those residents, especially on the Dundee and York area, which is a part of the Lincoln substation over in Royal Oak. So we are talking with them. Please know that I do pay attention to what's going on next door. Even though I may not be commenting, I am watching, and my heart just goes out to those residents that did not have power during those really hot days, and I just want to let you know that we are paying attention.
Thank you. Commissioner Olsman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just, first of all, like to thank Public Safety Director Pazikowski for the work that the Public Safety did during the Dream Cruise. As you said, smooth, no problems, we're not in the paper. I didn't see any news crews hanging out interviewing anybody, so much appreciated for that. I was very impressed by the calendar I received this past week from the Berkeley Public Schools, and Superintendent McDavid is to be congratulated. I wish all the students starting a new academic year here shortly nothing but the best of luck, and very safe and productive and healthy school year to all of them. And finally, this past week, with the death of Brooks Patterson, I would just say, as somebody who knew him, he wasn't, we weren't like regular dinner partners or anything like that, but I will say that he was a unique leader for the county, not perfect by any means, disagreed with him probably about many or most things, but I will say that when I first got elected, when I called him and I invited him to come to a city commission here to discuss this, he said, well, what do you want me to talk about? And I said, well, talk about Oakland County, transit-assisted development. He said, I don't know anything. You want Gerald Boyce and you don't want me. I don't know anything. So I appreciated his candor, and I really think that his model of leadership is something that's going to be missed. Again, this isn't to say I have to agree or disagree about anything. As Mayor Koch once said in New York, if you agree with me about everything, you ought to see a psychiatrist. So I think that to Brooks's family, just an acknowledgement of what a great leader he was for so many years and what a difference he made in our county, and express our condolences on behalf of the City Commission.
Mayor Pro Tem Jenks.
Earlier in the meeting, you heard about a welcoming committee. We will be celebrating Welcoming Week, which is September 13th to the 22nd, with a festival of food and culture in the library on September 22nd from 1:30 to 4:30. You should be hearing a little bit more about that, but what we hope to have is up to 30 different ethnicities and groups presenting samples of their food. There will be no charge. It's an invitation to the residents of Huntington Woods to come and meet some of these folks that are making presentations. And you, if you're interested, may also join in this. Hopefully you'll get information from the city manager, and maybe you can connect back with her. The event will be from 1:30 to 4:30. Second of all, on Dundee and York, it's nice for Detroit Edison to say they will do things. They did show me approximately 7 different actions and activities that they will be taking, and I asked that they send that to the city manager and that be posted on our website, and also that we get more detail on what's going on throughout the city in addition to tree trimming.
Thank you. I'll add one other comment. The DTE had talked about in the meetings that we had with them and at the open house is that they not only are going to have an aggressive tree trimming project, which still is 90% of the reason why we have power outages are tree related, but they're also committing to a 5-year cycle on that. So rather than let it go 9 years again or longer, they are going to be back in the community every 5 years trimming trees and making sure that they stay on top of that. Commissioner Olsman thanked the chief and his staff for all their hard work at the Dream Cruise. I also want to mention the Parks and Recreation staff who did a wonderful job of cleaning up the Woodward Corridor on Saturday night and making it look like nothing happened. So we thank them for that. And we also were supposed to have a dedication of Statue Park last Sunday, but because of the weather, the event was moved to the library. And so I would like to reschedule that formal dedication for the next City Commission meeting on September 17th at 6:45. I'll get the news out about that, and we'll have a little dedication, tell everyone what that redevelopment was all about. Celebrate the new park. That meeting is adjourned.